Perfect, and we can get started. So hello everybody. Folks are still coming in. Okay, so hello everybody. Welcome to this next office hour. So there's a couple of updates that I wanted to share. Features that I see as being quite interesting. That I often see a little bit underused. An interesting library app for corrective actions and preventive corrective and preventive actions, management, CAPA management. Then a couple of expression editor functions that I think are quite useful. And then finally, just some email formatting. So there's not much that's available, but at least getting things into new lines and kind of organized that way is helpful. So the first, and by the way, feel free to stop me at any point if anyone has any questions. But the first thing I wanted to share is adding filtering to analyses. So essentially, when you create an analysis, you can modify using the parameters here on the left side. You can define, date range, compare by x-axis, y-axis. Then once you set it up, it's kind of it's set up and you can share it and everything, but you can't modify it dynamically. Whereas I wanted to share how you can come in and basically create an analysis and then add dynamic filters. So here you can see if someone comes in here and says, okay, I only want to see the completions from the 9th of August to the 19th, a user can come into the app with the analysis embedded into it and modify the from and to. So then, of course, if I come in here, select the 12th, you'll see we'll only get the 10th of August and the 11th of August. So this example here uses dates, but it doesn't have to be dates. It can be with users or with any variable that you have in your analysis, or by station, or by machine. You can use anything that you use in your analysis. You can filter by. So it's a pretty simple and powerful way to kind of create, especially if people need to create dashboards or whatnot. It's pretty useful to organize the data this way. And I would like to add that it doesn't have to be from a user input. You can just like have the app calculate something and then display that information. So the way this works in the app builder, basically we have two variables that I named date from and date to. And then we have an analysis. In this case, it's simply the count of completions. So how many times the app was completed on a given day, because that's what we put on the x-axis. This is an important thing. The date range I'm applying to all time, because then we do the filtering from within the app, and no filters and no time zone or default time zone. And then once we have that, we can in here, once the analysis is selected, if we scroll down, we can modify the filters, and I simply added two filters and I selected date. So this is the date that the app was completed, and there was the count of completion is less than date to, and date has to be equal, is to be greater than date from. And here, if you notice, I've selected that include all records matching all conditions. So both of these statements need to be true for data to display on the analysis. So yeah, that's how filtering on analyses works. Are there any questions about this? Okay, awesome. Well, let me know if questions come up. The next thing that I wanted to share is the CAPA management app. So basically, it's a really simple app that was released last Sunday or the Sunday before maybe, that basically allows you to manage and track all deviations, quality events, and CAPAs. So there's a workflow that the CAPAs go through that you can fill out as you create a CAPA. So just to give you a quick demo here, once you open up the app, the first thing you'll see is a list of all open CAPAs, and you have the option up here at the top right to create a new event. So that's what we'll do now. We'll say, okay, incorrect bolts used, for example. I'll say the owner, I'll assign it to myself, the date it happened yesterday, root cause, I don't know, out of stock of correct bolts, for example. So you can put information on why you're reporting CAPA, optionally add a photograph, and then you can simply create report CAPA SMS. Oh yeah, the supervisor sent an SMS So I just received a text message on my phone saying that a new CAPA was created. And then we see it recorded here, incorrect bolts used. And if I click into it and I open it up, I have a series of things that I can do to it to basically progress it through the workflow. First of all, I can go in here, update the description and the root cause description and the actual description of the CAPA. And then I can also change its, or I can't change its status in this. There's a series of rules basically that of how CAPAs can progress by default in the app, but of course you can come in and configure the app if you'd like. But you can read about that in the support article that comes attached with the app. So here you can see all the various state changes, step names, and all the buttons and what they do. Then you can complete the CAPA, actually say, okay, source, correct bolts, for example, evidence, order, number 46, and I'll just submit, and there you go. This CAPA has now been closed, although maybe I don't know, because maybe I think you may need to be a manager. But basically, yeah, there's a series of workflows that you have to go through that you know, as it progresses through. There's a video of how it works from our library team, and I can share the link to this app here in the chat. And of course, last thing I'll mention is that like all the apps in the library, once you install it, you can go in and configure it any way you like it. So it's not said and done, but it's kind of works out of the box, but then you can go in and configure it any way you like. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to cover is some of the functions. So the expression editor is a powerful tool to help you manipulate data. It has a lot of functions that are often underused. So I wanted to share some of these. So the first one is uppercase. So basically, exactly as it says, when you have a text input, click the button and it just converts it to uppercase. So this is very useful. For example, if you're sending data to an ERP or a system of record, whatever it is, and you need to have it formatted a certain way, before sending the data, you may have to uppercase it or change there's also lowercase. So it's good to know that you can kind of manipulate, no matter what the user inputs or whatever data you have, you can go in and modify it using this this function here from the expression editor. So just see what it looks like. Quite simple, basic uppercase, and then I'm passing in the variable uppercase input, which is what the user inputs over here. Mid, so this basically, if you have a text, it takes the sub element. So here I just said, okay, start taking from the 4th element and take up to the 7th, I believe. So no matter what I put in here, it always gives from the 7th, from the 3rd character to the 7th. Again, this is useful. For example, you get a piece of data in from a scan, and you're only interested in a specific subset of this scan. Then you can do use the mid function that basically says, okay, start from. You can see the description here. Returns the maximum of the given. Oh no, where is it? Mid returns a substring containing characters starting from start. So here basically says, okay, what is the text variable that we're passing in, and then what are where do you want to start from and up to where do you want to go. So yeah, pretty useful way to basically extract only certain parts of a string. Then the other function that I wanted to share is parse date time. So this one basically, if I come in here and I put in, this is a text field here that I'm inputting in now. If I put in, for example, 9th of August, 2021, I click parse date time, you'll see that it converts it to a date and time, and this is now a variable 9th of August of date time type. So it's no longer text. So basically it takes a text string and then it converts it to a date. And this is really useful again, if, for example, you get a date that's formatted in a strange way from a connector or from somewhere, you need to convert it to an actual date time variable because you need it in that format in your app, then you can use the parse date time function. So here I define the format as DD, which means day, MMM, which is month, in 3 letters. So January would be JAN, and then year. But you can come in here and format it any way that you're receiving it. So for example, if you have with forward slashes like this, you come in here and say, okay, 09, 05, 2021, it converts it like this. And so you just need to make sure that what the user inputs corresponds to what you use in the function itself. And then within the expression editor, there's also a number of functions that work with arrays. So in this one, basically we have an array here. This multi-select is tied to an array, and it's looking at if it contains, I think it's the letter C, or was it B? Yeah, it's B. So basically, no matter what the array contains, only if B is selected will this go to yes. So if you're interested in, for example, if you have you're doing like a inventory check, you need to know, okay, you need to pick something that's in another warehouse or something, and you need to check, okay, within an array that could be your inventory or bill of material for a specific part, you need to check, okay, do we need this part? Then if yes, do a specific workflow. You can use this array contains function in which you pass in the array itself and then what you're checking for. So if I just change this to A, just so everyone sees, basically you want to come in here, and if you deselect A, it goes to no. Okay, awesome. And then the last thing, were there any functions about that? Were there any questions about that? Sorry. Okay. So then the last thing that I wanted to share is email formatting. So right now it's really basic in terms of what's available when you send an email, how you can format it. But I just wanted to share, so this here is an email that I sent to myself with 3 variables. So text variable, number variable, and a date variable, which actually I need to format. But you can see basically it's just very standard, but at least it's on new lines for every variable. And here, if I, basically if I show you what this button looks like, the trigger on this button looks like, we have the three inputs that we're sending in the email, so text, number, and date. And after every one of them, what we did basically, I can delete this and add it again. But if you put a single quote, \n, and then close a single quote, and then once you save it, you'll see that it just automatically goes down into a new line. And that's what making it that the email is sent with line breaks. We can get rid of this /, but so currently this is the only formatting that's available on emails, but at least it still does help kind of display it in a more user-friendly way.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes it much easier to read, Giovanni. I'll
okay,
test that out. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, does that make sense how to add the line break, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's perfect. I was wondering, I was having a look through the apps library yesterday, and I was just wondering, do we have any apps in there that they flag up, let's say, if something is outside a range or a limit, or it took too long to perform something, or one thing is heavier than another, that it flags it up as red and it alerts someone? Do we have anything like that? Is there an app in there with even some features similar to that?
Yeah, that's interesting. And there's none that come to mind, to be honest.
Okay.
Right away. It's something like that. I sometimes think it's it would be useful if there was an app and you can just copy the single steps or whatever, but it's kind of so customized for each process that it's a little bit hard to make a general one.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, let me see. I'm trying to think. Uh, maybe in here. No, there's none that I can think of. I'll definitely bring it up with the library team though, because I think if we had like a generalized way of saying, okay, what
Hmm.
are checking for, what's your upper limit, what's your lower limit, and then uh, give the ability for people to basically put the input, and then if it's outside of that range,
Yeah,
like
that would be perfect. Yeah, that's exactly.
yeah, I'll bring it up with the library team.
Okay.
I'll let them know. But just so you know, I can build a quick demo here, just to show you kind of high level what it looks like. So we can have a
Yeah.
number, for example, say, I'll call it validation input, for example. Let's say it's an integer. Um, and then here we can put a button and we'll say, okay, uh, when the button is pressed, if this variable that we just created, the validation input, is outside of a range, and let's just say for now, static value, integer, and say if it's less than 5 or greater than integer 10, then we'll say, okay, data manipulation, store data, static value, do a couple of things so that it's a very visual thing. Store the color red in validation status color. Then we'll also say data manipulation, store static values some text so that the user knows what happened. And we'll say out of range. And we'll store this in a variable that we'll call validation status text. And then we'll say, okay, so now we're set with if it's outside of this range from 5 to 10, but if it's inside of it, we'll add two actions and we'll say data manipulation store static value color. We'll give it a green in here, and we'll also say data manipulation store static value text inside range in the variable validation status text. So now we can have this. We'll just display these two variables that we just created. So first of all, play the color. Oops. We'll display the color, and then we'll put the variable on top here for status text. We'll make this white so that it can be seen. And now if we try it out, we say, for example, 2 out of range, but then if you put 6 inside range, so it goes green. Was that
Yeah,
more or
no,
less?
that's pretty much exactly. That's exactly
Okay,
what we were thinking on. Yeah.
yeah, awesome. And then so this is, you can add to this trigger. So here it's just, storing the color red and some text. But of course, if you wanted to say, okay, only go to the next step, and then here you can have like, okay, non-conforming part, for example, you can have it go to a specific step.
Okay. No, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I'll also bring it up to the library team because I think it's something that's very important, kind of checking for variables and making sure that whether they're inside or outside of a range, and
Yeah,
like provide feedback to users.
that's ideal.
Yeah,
And these sessions, they're recorded. Where can we go back and watch these again if we want to
yeah,
watch them?
yeah. So if you go to the community, community.tulip.co, and then you click into office hours over here, you'll see basically I'll add it. So this is 30th of August, the CAPA library app. This I'll add it down here.
Perfect. No, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I just put it in the chat there. Okay, oh yeah, but sorry, Lorraine, last thing, like I mentioned in the email, I think it would be useful to have additional formatting. So if you wouldn't mind posting in the product suggestions, I think that could be quite good, maybe
Yeah,
adding
I
it.
will do.
Yeah, thanks. Like simple stuff, just like bold, italics, simple things.
Yes.
yeah, it can be quite
Yeah,
useful.
I will do. I'll put that in. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Great. Are there any other questions that folks have on things that you've been building this past week that we can look at together?
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
You see my screen with field mapping, and then top left just says EDM 14.
Yep. Yeah, we got it.
All right. So just in here is basically what we're unsure of. Like if I started something with EDM 14. Say part count for now. So like this, yeah, like value versus quality. But we've seen a couple times where it says like for text for both of them, but we're just unsure what the difference between the two would be.
Yeah. So in this case, because part count is being output by the machine as a number of parts from when the program started or something, that's where you're seeing an integer. And that's the actual count of parts that's been made. And the quality is the quality of the actual like quality of I believe it's of the tag itself. So yeah, depending on, again, I think it's like okay, or poor or something like that, or not okay. But overall, like if you are interested in the part count, I would select the actual one itself. And the reason you'll see it text sometimes is if the actual variable, for example, if the cycle state is, you see this is text, you'll see both the value and the quality being of type text, because the quality is always type text and the cycle state in this case would be of type text.
All right, thank you. That makes sense.
Yeah. 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 So, sorry, maybe it wasn't the clearest explanation, but hopefully it helps clarify things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those the reason we might have seen it before is both text. Is that just because we can create both like value as text and quality as text, and numbers kind of just up to us how we create those?
No, it's up to you, but in basically from your server. So once you have, if the server is outputting program name as a text, you will get it in Tulip as text. So basically automatically map it, and you see how text and text, like these two always match these two. So this is on this side is what the server is outputting, on this side is what you're saving it in Tulip as, and the data types always always match. So for example, actually here, this one hasn't been mapped yet. So if you select an attribute here, and if you start typing, we won't save it, but just if you start typing, you say part count, yeah. So you see, and it automatically tells you add an integer because it recognized over here that this is an integer. And what you see over here depends on what the server outputs.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Okay, cool. Are there any other questions about machine monitoring or any other things that folks wanted to cover?
No, I'm good. Thanks. Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Last thing I will mention, Tom, I guess while there was there, I noticed you had Tulip University as a bookmark. There's 2 courses in there about machine monitoring, and the first one goes into detail about how how to set up the server and read the tags in Tulip. And I think there's an explanation there as well about the quality tags in case you're interested.
All right, thank you. I'll check that out.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, great. So, well, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.